Technology is changing very, very rapidly. We all know that. We all know that we live in this highly volatile, highly changing environment where one thing that we know is true today is not necessarily true tomorrow, and vice versa. So the truths of yesterday aren't necessarily the truths of today. So everything is changing in a very rapid way. And we've seen some incredible progresses in technology. We've seen, I don't know if anyone has seen this. This is the Lexus hoverboard. So Lexus decided to invest a lot of money into creating the hoverboard. This was the one that actually was real. There was a fake one around for a while. I don't know if anyone ever saw any kids trying to ride it. It looked a little bit like they were trying to go down a ski jump on an office chair. It had about as much control as that, and it was just a disaster. And it just seemed that the only reason Lexus decided that they wanted to make this was because why not? Because, we'd all seen Back to the Future. We all had these incredible childhood dreams of riding on a hoverboard. So they just decided to make it. And so much of technology these days, particularly in the area that we're in, with kind of mobile and just general kind of advanced technology, seems to be very much around I know what's cool, let's just make that and let's see how that works.
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
I think often we just don't stop and think. We don't kind of look at what we're trying to do. We often just think, let's not think whether or not we could do this. Let's think whether or not we should do this. And that's very much where I come from. As was kind of in the intro, I've been in the kids space for about 20 odd years now, developing marketing, engagement, experiences for children, anything from mobile apps and websites. I did CD-ROMs back in the day, all the way through to kind of more advanced stuff nowadays. So the first thing that we look at is children. I mean, that's really the first point, is who are these kids? And understanding children and understanding what children want really should be your first port of call. Not necessarily thinking about what technology can do for us, but necessarily thinking about what children want. And it's been said a few times by some of the speakers already today, if we can focus on what children are about and what children want, we're probably going to end up developing something that works. So over the years, I've kind of created this way of thinking about children. And we split these down into kind of three main big chunks of kids. And these are kids that are kind of 2 up to kind of 15, that sort of age range. And really, you've got these three lumps. The first lot of kids, kind of from this 2 to around 6-ish, they're just trying to understand, who am I? What am I in this world? These younger kids, a lot of these younger kids haven't quite worked out that they're not their mum yet. So they're still trying to develop and understand, and they're beginning to build a little bit of a personality. We then, once they kind of grow up a little bit more, we then get into this middle group. How do I fit in with my peers? So we call this line here, we call this the social chasm. Because up until this point, kids aren't really interested in what's going on around them. They're not really interested in kind of friends. If you watch a 4-year-old play alongside another child, you'll notice that they're not really playing with the child. They're playing next to the child. So they're kind of going, I'm doing my thing, and the kid next to them, and they're doing their thing, and there'll be another kid that's doing their thing. They're not playing together. My child really interacted. I've got 2 children. One I've got 6 and one at 9. The 6-year-old really loved his rugby, really loved his football, and it was just hilarious because when he was 5, they'd go out and play football, and it was like they were all playing their own game of football, but there was only one ball. So you'd have these 20 kids, and they were just all running around the ball, all just basically, none of them were thinking about the team, none of them were thinking about tactics. They were just, I'm just going to play my game, and these people are getting in my way, but if I just focus on me, everything's going to be all right. And that's really what these kids are thinking about. You then get this social chasm I was talking about. Well, all of a sudden, they realize that friends are important, that friends have value, that friends can bring benefit to them. It's at this age, kind of 6, 7, 8, that sort of age, that they start going up into bigger school. All of a sudden, everything's new, everything's scary again, and actually there's a bit of comfort with having their friends around them. So all of a sudden, they begin to think, hang on a minute, friends are important, so how do I fit in with my friends? Who are my friends? How do I fit within that environment? And they carry on kind of working that out for a little bit, maybe for another kind of 5 years until they're kind of 10, 11, and then all of a sudden, everything changes again. And we see this cycle going on, and we've named all these characters, and we see this cycle going on, which starts off with copying. then it goes to creating, then it goes to consolidating. And we all do it. We all do it in everything that we do. We do it when we start a new job. The first day of a new job, you just copy what everybody else is doing. If you copy what everybody else is doing, you're not going to get into any trouble. Because you kind of go, okay, what's everyone doing? Oh, okay, it's lunchtime now. Okay, we're all going over here. And that's kind of the way that you begin to understand the world around you. If I copy what they're doing, I can't go wrong. Then after a while, you go, okay, I'm a little bit more confident now. I'm not going to start copying. I'm going to start experimenting a little bit. So then you kind of have this role playing. They go, well, everyone's doing this at the moment, so maybe I'm going to try something a bit different and do this. So you get these kind of creating, different ways of kind of experiencing. And then finally, you get the I'm confident, I know what's going on, everyone's doing their thing, I know what I'm doing, I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to consolidate down. I'm kind of happy, I'm comfortable, I'm going to do this. And you'll stay in that environment until everything changes again, and then you go back to the beginning. So we see that with these guys. We see that kind of, first of all, they're just copying what everybody else does. So the really young kids, they're just kind of copying what mum and dad are doing, and that's how they're learning. And after a little while, they begin to kind of do role play. So at this age, they're just literally copying what's going on. And then all of a sudden, this is where you might see gameplay like dolls, or you might see them kind of copying what their mums are doing, or copying what their dads are doing, copying what their brothers are doing. You then get into this role-playing age, and that's all of a sudden where they become Spider-Man and they become Superman. And you say to your kid, you know, we're going to go to school today. What do you want to dress up as? You know, I'm going to go as Spider-Man. So, and that's that role play. So I'm going to just try something a little bit different. It's just kind of where gaming begins to kick in a little bit, where they kind of go, well, I'm going to experiment and kind of do role play through gaming as well. And then you get these guys. These are the control freaks. I kind of love these guys, control freaks, because they're at the age of kind of that 6 age where they're kind of confident, but they're kind of not confident. There's a little bit of kind of angst in their lives. All of a sudden, they're beginning to realize that there's this cause and reaction. So if they do something, that there's consequences to that. For example, things like their pets their pet might die, their parents might get divorced. All of a sudden, they realize that there's this scary world out there. So what they do is they try and create an environment within which they can control. So they will often go into themselves, creating these safe environments. So they'll do a lot of collecting and nurturing within this environment. They'll often create dens in their houses and dens in their homes to kind of create a safe environment. Then you kind of go up, and as I kind of mentioned earlier, you get this cycle again. You get this copying. So all of a sudden, these tribal sharers, they're in this new environment, they're with their crazy new friends. The first thing they do is, right, copy what everybody else does. So this is where you get these huge fads. Everybody's copying what everybody else is doing. No one's really leading, it's just everybody's copying. I kind of imagine, I think it's called a murmuring of starlings, which is where you get these thousands and thousands of starlings, and they're all flying around together, and you see this crazy kind of pattern forming. And basically, they're all just following each other. There's no one leader. There's no one person who's driving the whole thing. But this machine is kind of turning, and it's creating these incredible, beautiful displays, but they're just copying what everybody else is doing. And that's really what you see in these kind of tribal sharers. What they're also doing, because they're copying what everybody else is doing, and because they find the value of friendship becoming so important, that they're the ones that are also kind of saying, this is what I'm into. So that's why they'll have all of a sudden they realize, oh, all my friends are into Marvel. All my friends are into the new DC movie. And that's why they all of a sudden go, right, well, I've got to have the T-shirt and the bag and the lunchbox and the comics and the TV show, because that's what everybody's doing. And I need to be accepted into that. So I need to make sure that everybody knows that I'm into that as well. So anyway, so these are kind of the kids, and what I've done over the years is I've kind of built up this way of thinking about the children, which is this, and then kind of began to pull together what my 5 top tips are, if you like, for trying to talk to these guys. And if you do these 5 things, any one of these 5 things, you'll be on the right kind of track. So the first thing is make them feel safe and certain. For those who know Maslow's pyramid of needs, you'll know that on the bottom you've got that safety and security, and that's really important for children. As we mentioned before, a lot of the times children can be very unsettled. So, you know, they'll kind of be happy, they'll copy everybody else, and then they'll kind of consolidate down, and they need that safety and they need that security. And that comes in a whole bunch of different forms. So it can come in the form of gameplay. So actually, you know what? Some children just get stuck into gameplay because it's safe, because it's certain, because it's repetitive, because it's an environment they know, their environment that's not going to do something ridiculous on them. Again, some of these children are just experiencing situations where it's totally unknown, it's totally chaotic. They're going into school, they're getting told off because they've not done that. Everything's going a bit crazy for them. And you know what? Just gaming is just so simple. Simple kind of repetitive actions, just safe and secure. So kind of very simple games, they get that. They often get that as well from collecting things. As I mentioned before, these guys, the control freaks over here. So they will get comfort from collecting things. And there's this psychology about collecting, which is saying that ultimately the reason why we collect is because we like to sort the world. We like to basically say this goes in this bucket, this goes in this bucket. Often collecting is about that process of understanding, of sorting things into their individual places. Children love doing that. My 9-year-old, he had a nightmare at school for various reasons. He came home, he was in a really foul mood. He went upstairs, and in the UK and often around the world, you have these football cards with a footballer on them, and you collect them. And the idea is, anyway, so he got his collection that he'd spent hours putting into the right, and he took all of his football cards out of his collection book, and he jumbled them all up, and then he put them all back into the book in the right place again. And it was that process of collecting, having order. He does that with the Pokemon Go he collects. As soon as he collects a Pokemon Go, he goes, which one is this? Where does this sit within my collection? What number is it in my Pokedex? And look at my collection, look at your collection. That collection is a real sense of security for a lot of these guys. But security also, as they get older, remember that social divide, that security and feeling safe and feeling certain can come from friends as they get older, being part of a team, kind of being in this thing together. Again, that's something that happens beyond that social divide that we spoke about earlier, so kind of beyond here. These guys have a different form of safety, a different form of comfort. A lot of the time, friends don't really make much difference. They kind of can make a difference, but not very much. Quite a few years ago now, and you'll know it's quite a few years ago by the reference point I'll use, we did some research on Club Penguin. Where are they? So Club Penguin, we did some research, and kids who were kind of 5 and playing within Club Penguin, they got annoyed by all these penguins that were wandering around, and what are they doing? They're just getting in the way of me playing games and kind of exploring the world. And that was kind of around here. They didn't even realize a lot of the time that these were other people. And it's only really until they got to 7 or 8 they went, oh, these are other people. It was still around here that they're kind of thinking, they're still annoying. They might be other people, but they're still annoying. And it's probably not until you got to the middle bit that they kind of went, well, actually, there's some value in these other people, and actually we can form little groups and we can do stuff together. So again, that kind of safety and security comes from different things for different people. So that's the first thing, creating that environment of safety and that environment of certainty. The second thing is giving kids a sense of autonomy. There was a better sign that I had, and I didn't know whether the reference would be lost, but it's someone saying, it's the autonomy, stupid. Based on the old sign, it's the economy, stupid. But autonomy is so important for children. As we mentioned before, they go through that cycle of copying what everybody else does, but then all of a sudden they get into this, right, what am I going to do that's different? Give me some power. Give me the option to choose. They want that autonomy. They want the responsibility. We did some research looking at choice. How many of you guys have seen Friv? So Friv looks exactly, that's a screen grab of the homepage of Friv. It's nothing more sophisticated than basically 250 tiny thumbnails. Each thumbnail is a little casual game. There is no rhyme nor reason. There's no ordering. There's no filtering. There's no top recommendations. There's no your kids like this. There's nothing other than 250 of these images. And we were doing research because we were doing a project at the time for a big media owner who had loads and loads of videos, and they were basically saying, what is the best way for us to get these videos to this audience? And the common thinking, because we are adults, we have developed brains, we kind of think, well, there's this thing called option paralysis or analysis paralysis, which is if you give an adult too many choices, they end up crumbling in on themselves and going, I just don't know. I was lucky enough to buy the Note 7 a few weeks ago, just before the recall. Then the recall came, and I was back into that horrible position where you go, I've got to buy another phone. As you would note, I'm an Android owner, so I don't have I'll just buy the latest iPhone option available to me. So all of a sudden I'm in the shop and there are thousands of these phones, and then the annoying thing is that when you've got 100 phones in front of you, you know that one of those phones is the right phone for you. But you also therefore know that if I've got 100 phones in front of me, one of them is the right phone. 99 are the wrong phone. The odds are stacked against me that I'm going to walk out of here with the wrong phone. And then you start over-analyzing. You start looking at it going, well, do I like big screen? Is that more important than big battery? Is that more important than big processor? Better graphics, better camera? And you end up, I must have been in and out of the phone shop opposite where I work half a dozen times. Because each time I went in, I was just like, I just can't deal with this number of choices. So I'm just going to walk away. So analysis paralysis. But kids don't have that. Kids that have that, well, they do have that, but to be honest, they look at this and they go, this is amazing. Look at this choice. Whereas before, we would look at that and go, that looks horrible and that looks a bit scary, but kids will kind of go, wow, this looks incredible. So give them that choice. Give them the options to choose. Give them everything and let them sort it out. They hate it when you say, by the way, this is the most popular one. We're talking to kids and we're going, out of all of these, by the way, we know this is the most popular. And they're like, I don't care what you say. I know what I like. I know what I want, and I want that one. So they're not really interested in what you have to say. It kind of varies as you get older. As they get older, they're much happier to do that. But as the kind of younger age, they like the autonomy, they like the freedom, which is why things like open worlds, which is why things like Minecraft, giving them unparalleled access. You can do anything in this world. You have complete choice to do whatever you want. That's why that's so powerful for them. But with that responsibility, with great powers comes that responsibility. If you're enabling children to be whatever they want to be, you need to be aware that there might be consequences to that. If you're creating an environment where they can be and they can choose and they can say what they want, then obviously there are downsides to that. Now that starts kicking in as we kind of start getting a little bit older, obviously, where they start experimenting with what the real world is all about and actually what kind of an adult am I going to be, but we still have that kind of responsibility. The third thing, they love to see themselves progress. Yes. They love to know that they're moving forward. Children love education. It doesn't necessarily reflect itself in how they feel about school, but then education and school aren't necessarily the same thing. But they love to progress. They love to move forward. They love to know that they are learning. They love to get little symbols, little ching, yes, sat through 30 minutes of presentation, get in there. They love that sense of reassurance. They love to see themselves progress. They love to know, well, how far did I get last time? They love to know my score is 15 in Flappy Birds, or my score is 30 in Color Switch, or whatever it may be. And I'm so close. They see themselves progressing against who they are. They love to see themselves progress against a benchmark. A lot of kids will look at this and go, I'm not going to carry on until I've got my 3 stars. When I have my 3 stars, then I will move on. Nod to Rovio in the house. Or they love to see how they're progressing against their friends. Again, it kind of depends on where they are in that age cycle. So the older they are, they might want to see how they are. So as we start getting into that tribal group in the middle there, they kind of want to know, well, yeah, we're all friends together, but who's the fastest here? And who's the tallest here? And who's the prettiest here? And who's the funniest here? Who's got the most Pokemon here? They kind of love to compare themselves with their groups and with their peers. And that can be really obvious, or that can be more subtle. We know, for example, that the way that kids manage their social media profile is probably more sophisticated and advanced than most businesses manage their profile. They'll put up a picture. If they've not got any particular likes within a certain amount of time, and that number of likes will be relative to their friends' number of likes, then they'll pull the picture down and they'll kind of try something else and put up a different picture. So they have subtle ways that they are going to see themselves and how they are progressing. Create something amazing. This is our fourth thing. This is the fourth thing that kids love doing. They love to create. Creating something is such a powerful thing for children because it's enabling them to explore their personalities, enabling them to do those things that we spoke about earlier as far as like understanding who they are, understanding their opinion on things, allowing them to express themselves in a certain way. Children love to create stuff. Some children are really, really good at creating stuff, and some children aren't very good at creating stuff. This is Spirograph, again, showing my age. I loved this when I was a child. It's a fantastic... Does anyone remember Spirograph? Okay, there's a few in the house. That's good. So you couldn't go wrong with it. You just kind of put the spirograph thing down and you ran your little pen around it and you created something beautiful, and you were so proud of that. To be honest, it took pretty much zero skill to do it, other than making sure that you put your pen in the right hole, and that was really about it. But the sense of amazement when you'd created something that was beautiful, considering at the time you could probably hardly draw. We did a whole load of research looking at how digital tools were enabling creativity in children. And one of the things that it does, and one of the things that digital tools particularly are really good at, is giving that kind of structured framework. But they kind of start quite early. So one of the things of digital tools, it kind of takes you through. So it starts off with, well, here's a very solid piece. Maybe just tweak a little bit around the edges, change a T-shirt, change a hat, change a little bit of height. That's that kind of first step into creativity that children have. And then after a while, you kind of give them a bit more freedom. Here's a bit more of a blank canvas, whereas the first one is more of a kind of customization. This is a bit more of a personalization. Change it up a bit, change some of the colors, drop stuff where you want to, kind of a bit more freedom. Then the next level, you kind of go, well, actually, is coding a part of a creative tool? Because you're ultimately giving these children the tools to create something, whether it be, a piece of art or a game or whatever it may be. Again, each time you're kind of taking off those stabilizers. You're giving children a framework within which to be creative. Really confident children, creatively confident children are amazing, and they'll sit down and they'll go, I don't need any of this, blah, 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 blah. I'll just do it myself. I can create stuff, I can play the piano, whatever it may be. But so many children aren't that creatively confident. And actually, this is so great that we've got these and we're creating these digital tools which children can use and actually see themselves progressing and see themselves becoming more creative. They start kind of progressing through. Can anyone tell me what this is? First of all, can anyone tell me where this is? So this is King's Landing from Games of Thrones, and it's made in Minecraft. And this was a project that a bunch of kids did. I mean, kids 15, kind of around that age, and obviously older and younger. But they had this freedom, they had this tool set. So we kind of started off right at the beginning with these little tiny bits of personalization, all the way up to giving these children the ability to create these most incredible worlds. And that's a really powerful and important thing that we can do with these digital devices. Enable them to create something amazing. So many, it's a personal passion of mine, so many their children just are very creative, but they don't have the framework and the structure in order to express themselves. And actually, digital is such an important, such a powerful tool to enable them to do that. And I think it's a huge opportunity for digital tools. In a kind of odd way, I think we focus very much on what digital can do with STEM, and we're teaching children's technology and education and maths because digital tools exist within that world. Sometimes I think that we forget the power that the digital tools can do as far as enabling creativity as well. Final piece, they like to connect with each other. As we kind of mentioned earlier, they like to connect with stuff. We are inherently very sociable animals. We like to connect with things. Yeah, probably not in that younger age of the market that I spoke about earlier, but definitely as you kind of get from 6, you definitely want that connection. And even in that younger age, they do like a little bit of interaction. This is a Cognitoy, the new wave of kind of AI expressive relationship connected toys. There's the Hello Barbies, there's kind of all the other ones that are now coming on board as far as the ability to have a relationship with this toy and have a conversation with a toy. And we're seeing people forming these emotional relationships, caring and nurturing for something, even though it's innate, it's something that's particularly important. A lot of children, particular types of children in that control freak zone, one of the ways that they manage the world around them is they kind of go in and they look after stuff, they nurture things, whether it be a digital thing, whether it be a toy, whether it be a pet, whatever it may be. So it's kind of this slightly younger age, kind of around here, they start thinking about kind of nurturing those pets. But then they start getting a bit older, and all of a sudden, it's all about how do I connect with my friends? Well, I do it via these fads and via these trends. If anyone's got a 7, 8, 9-year-old child, you would have seen them at least attempting I will save myself, but the beautiful experience of or they're dabbing all the time. I tell you, it's driving me crazy. But this is the way that they ultimately are signaling out to their tribe. I'm one of you guys. Look, I'm doing the water bottle flip challenge as well, and I'm dabbing like crazy as well. And it's the way that they kind of connect with each other. And that's why you get these enormous kind of peaks of kind of these viral things. You know, this time 6 months ago, it was all about cucumbers scaring cats. Remember that kind of craze of kind of scary cucumber cat thing? You know, and all of a sudden, it just, everything was all about, you know, have you seen this video of this other cat being scared by a cucumber? And that's kind of what they all connected with themselves on. So that's kind of how they connect with each other, is through the means. And then obviously, as you start getting older, that's when things like Snapchat and that's when things like Instagram and all the other kind of messaging apps become so important to be continuously connected with each other. So, in summary, these are the 5. These are ultimately the 5 that I think if you can have some part of this in the way that you are, in the sorts of digital apps that you are creating for children, ultimately you'll be successful. Giving them a sense of safety and security. Don't try anything too kind of crazy and ridiculous. Keeping it simple and keeping them safe is really important. Give themselves some sense of autonomy and a sense of choice. I do enormously appreciate that a lot of these kind of counteract each other. Like I'm saying, keep it safe and keep it simple, but give them loads of choices. You know, I understand it's definitely not easy. Help them see themselves progress. Help them see that they're moving forward, that they're doing something, that they're making a difference. Give them creativity, give them output, give them a sense of production, a sense of means to produce something. And then finally, enable them to connect with each other, but obviously in a safe way. Anyway, that's me, Little Big Partnership. We're a consultant and research agency that ultimately help people like you guys understand kids a little better and create stuff better for kids. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Hi, thank you. Very interesting presentation. Could you talk a little bit more about how you work as an agency?
Yeah, so
like, what's your clients? What's the daily operations and everything like that?
So we're classically a strategic consultancy. So our clients are anyone from Disney, BBC. We've done retail work with people like, just finished some work with Harrods. We do work with media companies, as I kind of mentioned, BBC, RTE. We do stuff with toy companies. We kind of do anything. Ultimately, what we will have is we will have someone come to us and say, I have either this idea and I want to know how it works with kids, or I don't know, but I know that I want to get involved with kids. How is it best that I engage with them? So we will basically do a lot of the research, which helps them understand the kids' space that they're trying to get into, whether that be qual, whether that be quant, whether that be data research, whether that be looking at third-party research that already exists. Using, as I say, there's a lot of experience, kind of been doing this for 20 years, so using a little bit of that experience to kind of bring to bear as well, and then hopefully giving them a nice strategic platform on which to build their ideas, whatever they may be. So that's kind of, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yes. Sanna from Rovio. So one question, and first of all, thanks for the very good presentation. It's easy to see how these all apply to different types of apps, but have you found significant differences when you think about video solutions and games and kind of the context being more laid back and not so active? Like, for example, the sense of progress, for example. So if you think of the video solutions or video services, so it's more like being kind of a passive mode, not passive, but more passive than playing a game. So have you found differences in these kind of behaviors?
Yes and no to a degree. So, for example, in a video, you know, you want to see progress. So a lot of kids, for example, to a degree, they want to know, you know, they want to know how many they've watched. They want to kind of know the stats. They want to know, you know, where they are as far as the number of people. They want to connect with each other, but particularly within video, they'll want to connect with the creators of the video and kind of say, you know, have that conversation with the owner of the video. But I think, yeah, with video, I mean, we did a big platform for RTE, which is the Irish broadcaster, and ultimately we kind of had a very much game-based kind of thinking when we were creating it, and that was all around the enjoyment of consuming the video, the kind of progress of moving forward with the video, but also importantly enabling the viewer to connect with the person who was making it. A lot of the things that we found with YouTube is that they felt that they had a very personal relationship with the person, with the YouTuber, which is why YouTubers have such importance and clout and influence in children's lives, because they felt that they were much more attainable. So what we were trying to do with someone like RTE is give them a platform which made them seem and feel more attainable to that audience. So we basically gave them a bit more of a two-way dialogue between the child and the audience.
Awesome. Thank you so much.